Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Osasu Show. There is so much going on across the world despite the coronavirus pandemic. In the United States, you have the killings of unarmed black men and women suffering from systemic racism. You have the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many other black people who have suffered from police brutality. In Nigeria, vulnerable women and girls are at the forefront of discussions due to their suffering from rape and other violence against women and girls. On today's episode, I share my humble thoughts and opinions with you regarding these situations. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back on the Osasu Show. Welcome back to the show. Again, today I'll be sharing my thoughts with you regarding all that's going on across the world. It's very confusing at this time. For example, in Nigeria, we have the brutal killing of Vera Uwaila-Mozua. We have the brutal killing of Kadirat. These are young women that were brutally raped and killed at certain instances in just the past few months. Violence against women and girls have been, a topical issue that has been going on for quite a while. But due to the fact that justice hasn't been meted out against their perpetrators, we see that these injustices keep playing themselves out. Vera Uwaila, for instance, went to a church in Benin City to study, Redeemed Christian Church to study, and she was raped by 5 men who ended up killing her by smashing her head with a fire extinguisher. So we sit back and we look, what can be done? Aside the social media hashtags, justice for Uwa, justice for Uwaila, justice for Jennifer, justice for Kadirat, how do we take this conversation and turn it into action? It starts first of all with our legislators. So I would encourage each and every single one of you who is watching today to call your legislators. All their numbers are made public. We'll publish it on tostvnetwork.com. Call your legislators, lobby them to ensure that they are actually lobbying and proposing motions which will see to the decrease of this crime. That's number one. Number two, we need to start building systems, economic systems, political systems that will change things. Most times, after every 4 years during an election, we realize that we're stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea. We realize that both candidates that are, brought forward by the 2 major political parties do not serve in the interest of the majority of the people, right? We realize that we just have to choose the lesser of 2 evils. How about we start to create political systems now, years before the election, that would see that we can form a voting bloc of people who have the power to sway the elections in the direction of the people. Let me explain what I mean. In 2019, we had the PDP bring up Atiku Abubakar as their presidential candidate, while the All Progressives Congress brought up President Muhammadu Buhari as their candidate. A lot of Nigerians said, okay, I'm not going to vote. These are geriatric candidates. They don't serve in the interest of most Nigerians. How about we form a voting bloc, not necessarily a party that would field candidates or whatever, but a voting bloc where we say, okay, we're going to vote the candidate that is in the best interest or the best representation of most of the population. Let me explain. So we can call ourselves, the People's Party, right? The People's Party doesn't necessarily field legislative or executive candidates. What we'll do is to support the candidate which promises us more representation of women, more representation of youth in parliament and in their cabinet, right? So we can sign an agreement with these people. We've heard the rhetoric before. I know Atiku Abubakar said he'll do that. President Buhari said he'll do that. But this voting bloc would actually ensure that it is being done by signing a legal agreement, which can be done with these candidates to ensure that our representatives are put in position of powers to change things. Because when we look at the system in which most of these candidates run on, it starts with economics. You cannot win a political office without the financial capital. That's the reality. We have brilliant men and women across the 36 states of this nation and the FCT who have the intellectual capacity to move this country forward. But unfortunately, they do not have the finances, meaning they cannot participate in politics. So we now need to create an economic bloc, an economic voting bloc of individuals, well-meaning individuals who just, their sole aim is to see this country move forward, right? Create a block of them and we come together and say, okay, this is how we're going to run the political structure of this country moving forward. We can agree, yes, that in Nigeria we need XYZ amount of legislations that would benefit the poorest of the poor in our society. Then when it's time to vote, we throw our money, we throw our economic power behind the political candidates that can give us such representation. That is number one. Number two, politics. Politics matters. I know a lot of people believe that politics is evil, it's a dirty game. I would actually agree with you that it is a dirty game. However, we need to get in there to clean the political arena. We need young men and women, people of integrity, people with a conscience, people with a fear of God, to go into the political arena to clean it up so we can see sustainable change in our political environment. So people need to get involved. And as I said, yes, you need the financial capital to get involved in politics, but you also need the willingness of individuals to go in there and to make that change. It takes a lot of sacrifice to go into politics because you're fighting against a system that has benefited just a few people for decades upon decades. So you're going to have people that you're trying to help fight against you when you're trying to make that change. So then it's up to you to say, okay, am I passionate about this? Am I passionate enough about this to stay the course of change? Am I passionate enough about this that even when I'm being fought against by those I'm trying to help, I will still stick to this mad power. I'll still stick to my passion to change the system. So you have to ask yourself those questions before you even venture into politics. Again, we also need proper courts and police departments. We need people in the judicial arm of government. We need people in the law enforcement agencies to change things from within. Most times we look at successful people as, okay, I could be a doctor, or I could be a businessman or a businesswoman. Everyone is aspiring to be the Dangote or the Adenugas or the Alakijas. You know, we're just looking at quick money. How about we look at people or systems that are actually created to change things? So, for example, in the judicial arm of government, the judiciary wields so much power. This nation, and dare I say the world at large, even the United States, can be changed if we had judges and people in the judicial arm of government who are committed to equity, committed to fairness, and committed to implementing the rule of law in our society. Most times when we look at our prison systems today, it's so flawed that the common man has completely lost hope in the judiciary. You see a case of a woman who maybe stole 1,000 naira and she's left in prison for 20 years because she's poor, because she has no voice, because the judicial arm of government has failed her. Yet you see a politician who has stolen 2.5 billion naira and he's granted bail within 24 hours. So we look at these injustices in the judiciary arm of government and we say, okay, what is going on? How can we change this? That a nobody from the street can also have the same rights as a big man or woman. So we need more people to get into the judicial arm of government. We need more people to get into the police departments Yes, we've seen a lot of police brutality here in Nigeria as well. A lot of men and women in the police force who have gone and killed innocent children, innocent women, innocent men for flimsy excuses. Oh, you had dreads and you talked back at a drunk police officer and you're killed. The governor had asked that a curfew be implemented at a certain time, and maybe you broke that curfew and you're beating up in the street and killed. So we see this going on daily in our society, but how can we change it? It takes men and women like yourselves to go into the police force and start to enact these changes. Most of these things are not rocket science. As I said, it takes the willingness of the people and a systemic and strategic partnership for us to actually go about implementing this. Fourth thing, the media. We play a critical role in the change that we want to see. The things that we portray on our television shows, on our television platforms, is highly integral in shaping the minds and the mindset of those who are watching. For instance, today I'm using my platform to talk about the issues that are going on around the world. How about more media houses do something that's similar? How about we dedicate a certain time slot every single day on our programs, on our television channel, to talk about issues that would propagate justice and equality in our systems, in our countries, and across all sectors. I believe that he or she who controls the media controls the world. He or she who wields the power. For example, in the United States, only 5 individuals control all the thousands of media corporations in the United States, from the newspapers to the radios to the televisions. Everything is controlled by just 5 individuals. So can you imagine in Africa if we are able to divest that control and get more hands involved in the media, more well-meaning hands involved in the media, who can start to propagate the message of peace, equity, tribal and ethnic togetherness. Can you imagine if we can now start to preach peace and love and unity in the media every single day? Imagine the impact that would have on our nation, Nigeria. The media wields so much power, and I actually think it's a brilliant investment for individuals, men and women across the nation, across different social stratas. Try to start seeing ways you can invest in media. Media now is very cheap due to new media technology such as the social media. Anybody can start a Twitter page, anybody can start a Facebook page, and you can start to gain traction from those followings. So it's all about the content in which you put out there and all about the reason in which you're starting it in the first place. I believe that media can be used as a main catalyst for change, and I think those who are watching today should start to think, if you're passionate about this country moving forward, if you're passionate about rebuilding Africa, if you're watching from the United States or the United Kingdom and you're passionate about rebuilding the black community, you're tired of the injustices meted out against the minority community, use your media platforms to start to create change. Start to teach people who are watching you about systemic racism, because we know the issues we're going through right now about the killing of George Floyd and the killing of Breonna Taylor isn't just by happenstance, right? It's a system that has been built for centuries against the black people. That's the reason why the police can get away with it, right? That's the reason Trayvon Martin died. That's the reason other black men and women every single day are racially profiled and told that they cannot have a voice in the American society. So we need to use our media platforms to not only call for change. Talking is one thing, it's brilliant. Never get tired of talking, but start to create an avenue in which more action can be meted out. And I believe the media is a great platform to do that. Very lastly, education. Through the Osasu Show Foundation, which most of you know is a platform where we inspire and help youths, women and girls to build their capacity and to empower them to start small to medium scale businesses, has also been very helpful in sending children to school, children from the rural areas. Education to me is the fabric of our society. It's the foundation in which any individual from the lower class, middle class, or the rich are equalized. Education is the great equalizer, let me put it that way, right? If you give a child quality education, he or she can not only aspire to be anything they want to be in the world, but they are now equipped with the tools, with the intellectual prowess to go out and achieve this. So education is another thing that we need to look at critically if we want to move our nation forward and we want to empower the black race as a whole. We've been talking a lot through the foundation about quality education, but I think we now need to move from talking to actually implementing. Our education budget is less than 20%, is less than UNESCO recommends it to be worldwide, and we now need to push our legislators. And the legislative arm of government, I keep on going back to them, is because they play such an integral role. I believe the legislative arm of government is the most important role, is the most important arm of government, because they have the power not only to carry out oversight, but they have the power to see to the implementation of policies made by the executive arm of government. We don't have a shortage of policies and laws in our country. We have a shortage of the implementation. So can you imagine more like-minded individuals, men and women, youths, in Parliament, ensuring that these policies and laws that we have are implemented? We wouldn't be seeing racism, tribalism, gender inequality being meted out against our citizens. So I've given us a few things to think about, from economics to politics to the way our courts and police departments are run, to the way our media and our education systems are run. And I believe that these 5 pillars would enable us to build the nation of our dreams. A lot of people right now are completely devastated about what's going on. We saw the coronavirus gave us so much time to think, to reflect, to sit back and say, okay, what's going on in our world and how can we as individuals change that? But we see all the protests going on, the killing of George Floyd, as I said, the killing of Breonna Taylor, the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, then in Nigeria, the rape of innocent girls and women. And now we're sitting back to say, okay, how can we change things? And these are the 5 pillars in which we can use to change things. And let me also use this opportunity to address the, would I call it the illiteracy or the lack of sensitivity of some of our male allies and even females across the country who still see rape as a joke, who still see rape and gender violence as something to laugh about or something to question. I understand that not all human beings have the ability to be sympathetic or even empathetic, but I believe that every human being has an opportunity to educate themselves and self-develop. So for those people who ask questions that, what was Uwa doing reading in a church, during the coronavirus lockdown? What did she do to cause her rape? What was she wearing? What did these girls do to bring this upon themselves? Or, rape is a normal thing that has been with us for so long. So people who make statements like that and question the truthfulness of most of the accounts of these rape victims, I would just appeal to you to educate yourselves. I'm not casting any aspirations against you, but I would just ask you, I'll plead with you to educate yourselves and also realize that men can be raped too. So you can imagine if you were raped and you were asked, what were you wearing, or what did you cause to bring this on yourselves? So I believe that we all need to be sensitive to issues like this. We all need to read more, study more, watch more about cases of rape and see how we can be better allies to these victims. Most importantly, I believe that the female gender, we need more he for she's. We need more allies that would speak up for us as females, because women for so long have sacrificed our time, our energy, our intellect, our our prospects, to support the male gender. So I think it's time that men start to do this for the female gender as well. And you can do that by educating yourself, be empathetic, by putting yourself in the shoes of this victim. I mean, we saw the mother of Uwa wailing because her daughter had so many prospects. We saw the friends of Uwa crying that this girl was so brilliant. She wanted to be a microbiologist. She was so brilliant and she had the world ahead of her. She could have been anything, but she had her life cut short by 5 people who believed that rape was nothing, that the female gender belongs to them. And it starts from the home. It starts from what you teach your children growing up, right? If you teach your children that women are subservient to men, then they're going to go around and feel that women are a species to be dominated, not to be respected, not to be cared for, not to be loved. So we need to start doing better in our households, in the way we bring up our male child. And also I keep on going back to education because there's this instance of rape and beg. It's called R&B that is so popular in secondary schools and in universities, where you rape a woman, then you beg afterwards and she starts dating you. It's a very warped mentality, but it's our normal, right? It's part of this rape culture in which society and in which media and in which tradition has re-emphasized day to day. And a lot of men now that have done this in the past are sitting back to think about it. Wow, this isn't normal. What I thought was okay in secondary school, I now know it to be sexual assault. I now know it to be rape. So if you are one of those people, now is the time to seek restitution. Now is the time not necessarily to call up the person you did it to because maybe he or she has decided to forget about it. But now go back and say, okay, how can I better myself? How can I now be an educator? How can I now be that person who would go out there to ensure that situations in which I've done or things in which I've done are not repeated by the younger ones coming up after me? So these are simple things that men can do as allies to women. And for women who don't necessarily, believe in this female empowerment that we've been campaigning for, gender equality, for so long, I would also appeal to you to also educate yourself. Women make up 50% of the world's population. No nation can grow in the rapid speed in which we desire without the female gender being 50% of its population being empowered. It just cannot happen. So in order to build this nation, just to recap, we need to be able to empower the female gender. We need to be better allies to our female counterparts. I'm talking to you now, the men. We need to build our education system. We need to empower our media with the right tools and the resources needed to educate the populace. We need to build better we need to insert better people in the judiciary and in the police force. We need to get more like-minded individuals into politics. And finally, we need to strengthen the economic prowess of those who actually have the intellectual capacity to move this country forward. Economics is the foundation. It's the make or break. We talk about all the time getting younger people into politics or getting women into politics or getting people living with disabilities into politics. But we fail at doing this because we do not have or we have not been able to exert or inject the economic capital that is needed to actually get them into these political positions. These are just my little thoughts on what is going on around the world. It's also my prayer that we use this moment to reflect spiritually on the role that each and every single one of us has to play in the bigger picture, in the larger picture of what's going on. I believe that this is a great time to, take an internal audit of who we are and our capacity and what we can prefer to not just our immediate communities, but the nation at large. That's all I have for you on today's program. Follow us on social media at Osasu Igbinedion, at TOS TV Network, at The Osasu Show, at The Osasu Show Foundation, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. To read news on sustainable development and current affairs across Africa, you can visit our website, www.tostvnetwork.com. I'll see you same time, same place next week, and until then, take very good care of yourself. Goodbye.